Hola clase. Now that we're in Lección 9, we have learned all of the different forms of the preterit. There are many irregular forms and things we need to learn in the preterit. It's a little bit one of the more complicated verb tenses. So let's just go over what have we learned about verbos regulares e irregulares en el pretérito. Okay? First off, in Spanish 1, we learned just the regular verbs. And we learned, for instance, that there's one set of endings for AR verbs, right? For the verb comprar, yo compré, tú compraste, usted compró, nosotros compramos, ustedes compraron, all right? And you had those accents on the yo form and the usted, él, o ella form. The first person and the third person have those accents and you stress them. Compré, compró, right? You put that emphasis on it. You have those same accents on the ER and IR verbs, and they have exactly the same endings this time. In the present, they were a little bit different, but here they're exactly the same, right? For vender, yo vendí, tú vendiste, él vendió, nosotros vendimos, ellos vendieron. Or escribir, an IR verb, yo escribí, tú escribiste, ella escribió, nosotros escribimos, ellas escribieron. All right? Again, with those emphasis on the vowels on the yo form and the third person form. Vendí, vendió, or escribí, escribió. All right. We also learned there was some spelling tricks that we had to learn for verbs that ended in car, gar, or sar. Right. We learned that the letters C and G both have two sounds. That's actually similar to English, right? And they have a hard sound and a soft sound, all right? Un sonido duro for a C is k, like in English. And the soft sound, suave, is like in English, a k and a s, like a K and an S sound. So you have cat, cot, cut, or in Spanish, caminar. And it's soft in front of AOE, so you have, for instance, cinco. Because of that, if you took the verb buscar and you got rid of the infinitive ending and you just had busc up to the C, and then you added the E after it, it would be busse. The C would become soft. And in order to preserve the original sound, they replace it then with a QU, which works just like a K. Yo busqué. Yo busqué. In Spanish, you don't pronounce that U after a Q, it just makes it work, and it works like a K. With llegar, the letter G, again, it has a hard sound and a soft. In English, it's G and J. In Spanish, it's G and G. So we have garaje, Gomez, Gutierrez, right, in front of A, O, and U. But in front of A and E, general, you have that soft sound. So with llegar, if you took yeg and you put E after it, it would become soft, yeje. And so here they add a U, not to make you pronounce the U, but just to keep that G hard. So that makes it yege. All right? That U after a Q or a G, just to make them work, is the only other letter besides an H in Spanish that can be silent. No other letters are silent. With the ZAR, for some reason, in Spanish, they don't like Z's to be followed by E's, and so they change them for C's. I can't tell you why. I don't know. There are also some spelling changes for the verbs that have this sort of double vowel, creer, leer, oír. You'll see they have Y's in the third person, creyó, creyeron, leyó, leyeron, oyó, oyeron. They also have more accents in order to pronounce correctly the endings. In the preterit. And the last thing that we learned in Spanish 1 was that for AR verbs and ER verbs that had stem change in the present, there is no such thing in the preterit. So cerrar, which did have a stem change in the present, in the preterit, it does not. Cerró, volvió, jugó. Okay, that was Spanish 1. In Spanish 2, in our first chapter, Lección 7, they taught us that ser and ir have exactly the same forms in the preterit. Yo fui, tú fuiste, usted fue, nosotros fuimos, ustedes fueron. And so you have to pay attention to the context, to the rest of the sentence, to know if you're saying that somebody was something, or they were something, or somebody went somewhere, right? But you can tell by the rest of the sentence. Then in chapter 8, we learned that there is stem change in the preterite for IR verbs that had stem change in the present. All right? And here you can have, here you have the verbs that changed from e to ie or e to e in the present. In the preterite, they just changed from e to e, that's all, and it's only in the third person. And then there are only two verbs that changed from o to ue in the present and also had an ir ending, and now they just changed from o to u and only in the third person, singular and plural. All right? So these were the verbs we need to remember, the IR verbs that had stem change. Now they have stem change, but it's important to remember that the pattern, we talked about when we learned the stem change in the present tense, we learned that it was in the boot, right? In all of the singular forms and the third person plural. But now in the preterite, it is just in the third person, nothing else. Okay, that was just a different pattern of irregularity. Then now that we're in lesson 9, in lección 9, we're learning these irregular preterites, and they categorize them as being U stem, E stem, and J stem. That's a little bit deceptive because that's not the only thing that happens, that you get and you change the vowel to an U. Sometimes they change other letters also, like in this one, tener becomes tuve, tuviste, tuvo, tuvimos, tuvieron. You see, there's no accent either on the yo form or the usted, él, or ella form. They just don't have that. You recognize that it's preterite because of the way that the whole stem has been changed. For venir, it is just the vowel that changes. Vine, viniste, vino, vinimos, vinieron. For decir, look, again, it changes both the vowel and one of the consonants. And this is the one that has the J stem. You have the letter J. The ones that have the letter J have one other thing different, which is different from the other ones, which is that instead of ieron, they have just eron in the third person plural, right? So here you have more or less my list of the verbs that we're working with. Here you have the ones that go to U and to E and how they change. And here's the conjugations: estuve, estuviste, estuvo, estuvimos, estuvieron. Here with hacer, hice, hiciste, I'm just pointing out that hizo, to get that sound, that C would become hard when followed by an O, so they change it to a Z. So you have hizo, that's another little spelling change. Hicimos, hicieron. And then the ones that change to having the J, they have this spelling change in the third person plural ending. Dijeron instead of dijeron. So this is just a little bit different. So here you see, three sets of endings, right? For AR verbs, for ER-IR verbs, and the endings for irregular verbs, except for the ones that end in J, there's a slight difference. And you also know that there is stem change for some of the IR verbs. So this is what we're learning now, these three sets of endings with a slight little difference, remembering about stem change. And then there is that page that's on Canvas under important documents on modules about the preterite that goes through the regular preterite, the stem change, and then the irregular ones. Here's the pattern. And then you have ser and ir, and then even the verb dar that we just learned in lección 9 also, where instead of AR endings, even though the verb ends in AR, they use ER-IR endings. So let's just see. Here we have a paragraph I don't know if you can see all of this. Let's see. Let's just see how we would conjugate this. El viernes pasado, José y Ana, the verb is ir, if you can see it there. So it would be, what would it be? Ellos fueron a las montañas de Mammoth. Durante los 2 días que José y Ana estar en las montañas, how do we put estar in the preterite? Remember? Estuvieron. Ellos hacer muchas actividades. How do we do hacer in the preterite? Remember? Hicieron muchas cosas, right? Muchas actividades. El sábado, ponerse sus abrigos. So here they put on their clothes, one of the reflexive verbs. So remember, we got to use that se, and then poner is very irregular. Se pusieron sus abrigos, botas, guantes y bufandas. Y pasaron todo el día jugando en la nieve. Por la noche, cuando irregular, querer regresar, quisieron regresar. A ver, that's the one that means there was. What do you say? Hubo un detalle que se habían olvidado. No traer cadenas. They forgot to bring chains for their car. And how do you put that in the preterite? Trajeron. Okay? Now, just an example of using these irregular preterites, but also some of them are just regular verbs. This is the way you're going to have it on tests. They're going to be combined because in normal speech, you don't separate out irregular and regular verbs. Okay? I hope this is of help for you. Okay? Gracias a todos.